Does this Intarsia look as terrible to you as it does to me? Go ahead, crucify me in the comments, but school me while you're at it. I redid the entire vest. I was so ashamed of my work. Even the self-proclaimed lazy knitter really shouldn't be producing a knit like this. It's a sacrilege. It is an affront to Cascade Eco. It is an affront to any pattern and anyone who tunes in who wants to see the Wednesday vest. I'm Michelle. This is my so-called handmade life. This fall and through the next year, I'm focusing on making what I call Famousknits, which are knitwear items that are inspired by TV shows, movies, the culture around me that I've kind of been saving, often clicking a picture with my phone of a screen and sticking it in a Pinterest board. I'd like to make some of those happen, and I'm recruiting all of you to share your ideas for things you've wanted to make, specific series or movies or other sources that you have for inspiration. And I'm putting it all in a Pinterest board called Your Famousknits Inspo. And I also will have mine that as I dribble out different things I talk about with you, I'll be throwing them in my board. I have a link for all of that in the notes below, but the full links are in the link to my blog because this is going to be a link heavy episode and they won't all have room here on YouTube. They like to limit the info. So I always ask questions, and at the end of this episode I ask an important one. I can't really make the next episode about the Gilmore Girls knitwear inspiration. I really can't make it without your input. I need to hear your thoughts on that. So fast forward to the end or look down in the description at the question and make sure you answer it quickly because I really want your feedback to make what I feel like is a complete episode about it. I thought what I would talk about instead is the progress on my current Famousknit, which is the Feels Like Wednesday vest, and just my thoughts on graphic knitwear designs in general. I feel like they're kind of all over the place right now. They're coming back. We had a lot of subtle low contrast knits for a few years there, and I'm noticing solids and high contrast and a lot of graphic designs. So let me ask you first, if graphic design is something like using different elements, arranging them and ordering them, like text, images, color, layout, in such a way to convey a message or create some kind of appealing emotion in people. When you hear the term graphic sweater design, graphic knitwear design, what do you picture? I absolutely picture something like this. Small palette, high contrast, geometric design. That is what I think of. That's not the complete definition of a graphic knit, but that is what I picture. And I have enjoyed making this for that reason. I haven't done something like this, and I don't know. It's been a long time since I did something high contrast, striping, at least that I can think of. I'll talk to you about this first with a little confession. Like I am really, truly the worst. At this point, you probably know that, and you're either following me because you love that I'm the worst or you hate watch because I'm the worst. But I'll go ahead and reveal my messy Intarsia. Forget everything I just said. I am not afraid to show the seedy underbelly of this Wednesday vest because I redid the entire vest. Does this Intarsia look as terrible to you as it does to me? I have this thing, and I guess I read it somewhere, where I anchor off when I'm switching from one color to the next. I'm thinking most people don't do that. Yeah, it still doesn't look good. So anyway, I think I did a messy Intarsia, is my confession. And I work on it in the dark, and as usual, that's my excuse for stuff. But I looked at it in the light and I was like, I'm kind of lazy. when I get to knitting, I just want to get to knitting. I am, but I was not interested enough until I had a monstrosity. And now I'm much more interested. I was so ashamed of my work. Like, I really looked at it in the light of day, which it was entirely knit in a dark room over the course of a few evenings. And I was ashamed. I was like, even the self-proclaimed lazy knitter really shouldn't be producing a knit like this. I don't know what I was thinking about anchoring off the yarn before and after working a stitch or two next to it, except that I've only done 2 other Intarsia projects and both were less regular shapes, the color work, and you had to introduce the yarn somewhere in the center, you know, for the bear's face I showed you. This is Oh My Bear by Tiny Owl Knits. Little bear hood. Okay, so I had never done Intarsia and it looked terrible. And things did show through on it, and then I blocked it and it looked great. I steam blocked it, so I'm hoping I will have the same kind of experience with the Wednesday vest. But look at the underside of this. It's kind of all over the place. Now I get that it's not squares. It's not like an even geometric line. But that anchoring yarn to get started on something, see, that was more necessary because this was kind of a moving shapes. I probably made a mistake doing that, but wasn't this cool? I still have this one. You had to introduce the yarn somewhere, so you kind of anchor it off. And I would also run it in floats to the next place it was needed if it was kind of close to where the first few stitches were. So maybe that was still in my head, but the back was such a mess. Instead of worrying about like anchoring my yarn a stitch before I'm starting a new color, you just simply twist the yarn. You bring the color you were working with to the front and pull the color you're going to use up behind it, and that's all you have to do. I did make sure though to give them a nice little tug so that you wouldn't see unusual spaces right here. There's a bit of spacing, but it's not bad. And it's uniform through the entire sweater. And look how much better it looks now. Now I'm still the lazy knitter, right? I've got these floats running across. When I would finish a block of color on the last wrong side row, I would run the next color along with it to the very end of the block and leave it hanging, because that was going to be the color I would use in the next set of blocks above it. It's just, you know, because the alternating color pattern, I knew that at the last row of each block, I could run my yarn that would need to be set up to work on top of that color. I could run it across the block with that last row. And that's what I did, so that I really have, I mean, you can see how many ends I have. I'm counting 19 ends, but this could have been several of those plus 2 for each square. So that's not too bad. I still have, I'm making the largest size. I went back and decided to do the large because I just knew I would want more ease. And if there's any chance that it would be kind of fitted around my belly, I wasn't gonna like the look of it. So I can always do more ease. I will probably always be that kind of person. So I went with the extra large. Have not even broken into the second skein of Cascade Eco Green. I have plenty of gray left and a lot of green actually. So the front side will have even less space because there'll be a V-neck, but I will be using the green for the band at the bottom, the sleeves, and the neckline. So anyway, I just want you to know that your existence is why this looks better, because I don't know, I might would have just set it down and said, yeah, one day I'll get to it. But I felt, you know, I felt a little peer pressure, a little shame that it's wrong to make something quite so sloppy. Like, I'm all about shortcuts and I'm fine with fiddling, but nothing should be quite that sloppy. So I put on the Durls in Corfu, which one of you had recommended. And I thought it would be kind of like Downton Abbey, like a little syrupy sweet at times and then kind of cheesy, but trying to be edgy, you know, at others. And I was surprised. It was a lot more fun, actually, to me than Downton, and I enjoyed it. I only saw 2 knitwear items the whole time I watched as I worked this, but they were both good, and I'm putting them in the Your Famousknits Inspo Pinterest board for all of you to see who are interested in that. But this is my progress on my first Famousknit for the fall, which is the Wednesday vest. This is the back, and I'm feeling really good about it. I went thrifting with my daughter yesterday, and I saw a vest with a lot of positive V's built into it. It was kind of an oversized houndstooth check print. It's a sweater vest, and it made me think of the hashtag mosaic vest. But it was going to be about this. Actually, it was a little larger than this. And a part of me kind of wanted to get it because it was very lightweight, and that is very wearable where I live. But I was like, no, I am making my own. There's no sense in me having a million vests floating around like I have sloppy sweatshirts. So I think by the next episode, this will be finished, especially considering I ripped back in 2 episodes, I believe, of the Durrells. I knit the rest in another 2 episodes and an episode or 2 of For All Mankind. Basically, I vegged out in front of the TV for half a day, but to do this in half a day is not bad. Now you can go back to listening to whatever else that doofus has to say to you. When you hear the term graphic knits, what do you think? Do you think 2 colors, bold, foreground, background, color, geometry? What do you think? Or do you think of graphics like text, you know? I ask because when I said I wanted some Famousknits ideas and inspiration, a friend, Jen, sent me a picture of some young women, I'm sure it's in the 80s. They knitted their own concert tees for Duran Duran concert, and they had the info about Duran Duran, and I think it was Rio, because it's like a Nagel print of a woman, of course. So cool. And she was like, well, it's not TV and movie inspired, but it's sort of, right? It's music, concert tee inspired. And it really is. It's famous, right? Those are famous images. I thought that was the neatest idea. And it made me think about how when I first started knitting, early 2000s, I would read about knitters who had been copying major fashion brands and labels, their logos, into their knitwear as a subversive act to kind of protest fast fashion, to protest unfair working conditions. And I went looking for articles about knitwear designers and or just knitters who were doing that. I could not find them. Like, it's lost on the internet. All I get are ads. Like, the first page of Google is just somebody selling something. I thought that was a little ironic. I'm looking for knitterly commentary on capitalism, and I can't find anything because it's lost in a sea of advertising and, you know, people selling things, but whatever. I always thought that was a really cool idea. I was a fairly new knitter then, and I just thought one day I want to do that. Well, the day where I could easily do that has come. I can't imagine working a Nike swoosh into something now. And I think it's because I can't imagine it being understood as a subversive act. It looks more like fandom. Okay, Duran Duran concert sweater, yeah. I'm a fan. I would totally do that. I love the idea of that. Jen, are you really going to do that? I hope you do. And one of you, it was Rowena, mentioned, I asked in the last episode, so what are some TV series, movies, inspiration for Famousknits for you? And Rowena was wanting to knit a big orange oversized Tommy Hilfiger sweater, or one that looked like that a K-pop star Wasa has been like the inspiration for this line from Tommy Hilfiger. I don't know anything about Tommy Hilfiger anymore, and I know nothing about K-pop. So she's in Mamamoo. I looked at her whole line, Rowena, and I liked all of it, but it all looks like classic late 90s, early 2000s Tommy Hilfiger to me, which is fun. You know, for me, that's a fun like flashback. I'm wondering, if you do that, Rowena, will you work in a knitted logo of some sort? Speaking of orange stuff, here's the progress on my last Simply Irresistible pair of socks. This is the Thistle Seeds pattern. So this is my third one to try. It is fingering weight, it is going slow, and I am struggling to do this one while watching Lupin. Have you watched that series? It's really good, but it's subtitled, and I keep losing stitches while I try to, you know, watch the subtitling. It is this is very pretty in this Passion Knits Nouveau yarn. Nouveau Riche is the, and I wondered if it would micro stripe and how that would look in my ribbing. So here's the ribbing side. It's not really micro striping. It looks really good, but the other side, this slip stitch pattern, looks so good. I don't know if you can see how good it looks. It's got its own, it makes me think of the front of a really great cabled sweater, or like, I don't know, Velma vibes. This is going to be a really fun pair of socks to have for this fall. I hope I can get them finished quickly. I should be able to if I just quit watching subtitled shows. Speaking of shows I watch, have you seen The Pod Generation? Let me just say, that was a surprising show. I enjoyed it. I had heard nothing about it, but the man who plays her husband, he looked familiar, but I haven't seen him in anything in recent years. But when he spoke, I was like, I know that voice. He was in Serenity, and he was Chiwetel Ejiofor. That's whose voice I was hearing, and I recognized it from Serenity. So as my husband and I watched this show, we were like, oh, I really enjoy it because it's kind of sci-fi, and I always love a movie that's surprisingly good, or at least decent, that I haven't heard any hype about. Like, I really can escape. If there's no one too famous in it, if it doesn't feel like a Tom Cruise vehicle, I like to escape in something like that. I had heard nothing about it, and there was a lot of really good knitwear. A lot, like an unusual amount for such a short series like this. So if you haven't seen it and you want to, I'm going to put on the screen what to skip to, because I don't know that any of these images would spoil anything for you, but like, I want you to have the experience I had where you don't know anything that's coming, so just skip ahead. So there's this one scene, there's this vest. I like that it's extra long, and the pocket is kind of a roomy pocket. It has kind of a grandpa feel. This sweater that could be done with color work, but has almost a tie-dye look. They're trying to yank it over her belly. I just thought that was cool. I love this large cowl neck sweater. It's raglan and really textural, like maybe there's fisherman's rib, just lots of texture in this natural wool sweater. It's really good. He has some good knits in the show also. I found so many things I liked in it. Several of you gave Inspo ideas, like Becky talked about Mr. Rogers' grandpa style cardigans, and Hannah, of course, likes Rory's gigantic sweater, which she's working on, but also mentioned Miss Weasley's sweaters. And I thought about Harry Potter and the number of knitwear articles, blog posts, Pinterest things about that are just crazy. I've got all that up on your Famousknits Inspo Pinterest board. And several of you liked the Twin Peaks idea, and Gina mentioned the Durrells of Corfu, or the Durrells in Corfu, which I've heard about. It's been recommended to me, but I've never watched it. I think I'm going to start that next. Hannah also mentioned on Anne with an E, Marilla's brown cardigan, which made me think how many good knits I saw in the original Anne of Green Gables series with Megan Follows. Keep your recommendations coming, and if you want to see each other's things, ideas, they're there. Rowena's K-pop looks, I've got some in there also. As far as some other knits that I would call graphic, I'm going to run through quite a few with you. Very few are recent. They're a little older. A lot of really cool graphic designs are coming out, but we kind of all know about them. And I kind of wanted to cover some that you may not know about. As far as vests in particular, very classic, black and white, kind of a houndstooth looking vest is Coffee by Jennifer Dassau. Now that's really classic in style. It's not big, geometric, bold prints, but I like that it's just a classic style, and the vest shape, because we haven't gotten enough of vest yet. The Slipover number 1 by Tyne Rousing. There's number 1 and number 2, and one is cropped. The other is not. I actually think the cropped is more of the moment, but it might be such a satisfying knit you'd want to make the longer version, but that employs geometric shapes and multiple colors. It's a larger color palette, but you could do it with subtle color changes, low contrast, and then a pop of color here and there. That's a fun one. I just think that's super interesting looking. There's Easter by, I'm not sure if I'm saying Easter right, by Arne and Carlos. Sarah Otteson has the warp vest, and I really like this. It's got the kind of the look of plaid, but it's a very bold, like zoomed in plaid. And I just love, you can make it super bold with the colors you choose. And I love how it's such a kind of like I said, zoomed in, like you pinched and pulled on a plaid in such a small space of a vest. I think that's a really neat look. The Octet vest, number 13 by Brandon Mabley. That's another one that is, you know, diamonds. Like, I feel like these checks are a really big deal right now. Also, just, you know, on the diagonal as diamonds, sort of like that vest, that sweater from Only Murders that Selena Gomez wears that I showed on my Instagram. Super popular right now. That Octet vest could work that way, multiple colors. And I don't see, when I look at it, I don't see any order of arrangement. It just looks very free-for-all. The Gridlock vest, number 10577 by Serdar. It's a crocheted vest that I think probably came out around the same time as the Wednesday series and this knit, you know, checkerboard flooring, checkerboard rugs, you know, it's been in home interiors and clothing for a while, but that's a crocheted version. And I believe it is free. Here is a free one. The Color Block Party vest on the Yarnspirations website, which I think is the company that makes patterns. They have a lot of really good free patterns. They're not just like you would used to find patterns that were super simple, maybe bland seeming on the ball band of a ball of yarn in the hobby store, but this website has a lot of fun ones. And this Color Block Party vest is that. I think it's fun. It would be a great use of stash. You can make it as bold, as varied in color as you want, or super subdued, or truly just use up stash. And it's free. Another free one that, again, I feel like is a classic geometric look, but blown up, is the hashtag Mosaic Vest by Svetlana Pakomova. I really like this one. I think everything is kind of generous. It's generously blown up kind of graphic stitch pattern, and the neckline, generous V, generous ribbing at the neck, the sleeves, the waist. I really want to make this one, and it's free. The last one I would say is similar with the diamond prints, the Heathland multicolored vest by Erika. That's another one. These are really good for stash busting. A lot of these are in my stash busting bundle on Ravelry. Now, if it just comes to bold, when you think of graphic, if you think of stripes, plaids, and window pane, things like that, here's a few for you. I don't know if you know of Boadicea Binnerts. I think she has some of the most fun window pane and plaid graphic knitwear. I haven't seen her put anything out in a while, but she did the Checks and Balances sweater, which looks pretty traditional pullover, right? Pretty fitted, you know, comfortable fitting pullover. I really like that one. And you could make it super, I keep showing this. All of these would look so good in this. That's why I mention it. Boadicea has the Checks and Balances, the window pane sweater, which I always thought was so fun, and it has unexpected solid patches on it. She's always got like something interesting and kind of quirky or unusual to her pattern. Pignato, if I'm remembering correctly, it's not just like a drop sleeve, oversized sweater. There's an interesting shape to the way it fits. It's got an interesting shape, and her color choices are great. Yarnspirations has another one for free, the Boxy Check sweater, which is similar to the other free vest, only this is an entire sweater. It looks like fun. And Olga Grishina has the Femi cardigan, which is a very sparse plaid, almost window pane looking cardigan. And the style of the plaid is so, I guess, spread out and enlarged that I think it's very modern looking. If you want to go for just interesting, bright, graphic, and unusual design, I have some for you. Salt Home by Emily Green is just interesting. Fair Isle sweater. Unusual shaping on it, unusual patterning. The whole thing is very unusual, and it really would work well in very bright contrast, high contrast. Boadicea that I told you about a minute ago, her mini Fair Isle sweater is not such a large print. It's very intricate Fair Isle. And it's two mixed Fair Isle patterns, and I really love that. Like one side of the cardigan is one and one side is the other. I really like that idea. It's very cool. Graphic by Amy Gunderson has that same graphic appeal, but with a more intricate design. Like we're talking about small shapes. Also perfect for this kind of yarn pairing. Amazing Pullovers by Alpha Knits. That's cool. It's got kind of a optical illusion feel to it, like the black and white spiral sweater by Hellerin. And then if you wanted to go a little more mainstream, like, you know, just for a yoke that is pretty graphic but not too over the top, Anne Vensel's Super Celine, which is new, and I'm sure you've seen it. That would work really well in high contrast, which she has a high contrast version. And Olga Grishina's Pia sweater is another one. Julie Weissenberger's 9 Patch is also a checks type sweater. It's a cropped cardigan that's short sleeved or 3/4 length sleeve. But the interesting thing about the checks is that they aren't checkerboard. Like, they are just kind of freestanding blocks of color. They might just touch at the corners or might not at all. And sometimes there's spaces in some of the projects on Ravelry, you'll see where people did the same color in 2 checks next to each other. It makes me think of a pieced together quilt that someone did with scraps. I got a bright green, super duper cheap Wool of the Andes sale that I also still haven't used. I got it to go with some Patton's Aran colored yarn, or else a gray that I may still have a little left over from a project. I wanted to make Cheryl Toy's Rise sweater. That is the best graphic pattern I've seen in a long time. It's super vibrant green, and I wanted to make that happen. And I had already had the more subdued cream or off-white. I wanted the bright green, and that's another one I would like to make in the coming year. That is what I think of when I think of a graphic knit. It's like an oversized geometric print, high contrast, that kind of thing. Alison de Kuysen's Block Island sweater is kind of an, I would call that an enlarged graphic print type thing too. Stripes, dots on a larger scale. I find that refreshing. And I also like it's Sarah Dallas's chessboard checks. I like that one too. It's so, and like I said, it looks so over the top. I appreciate that after a few years of semi-solids and tonals and low contrast and intricate patterning. I don't know. I'm enjoying the large graphic looks of things like this. Alexis Winslow, who wrote the book on graphic knits. This is her first book, I think. She probably has 3 out now. I'm going to show you some of these older patterns that are still just as fun today. I wouldn't normally say of this barbette turtleneck, I wouldn't normally think of this as graphic. Like, it wouldn't come to mind, although it is a graphic, very high contrast color block, but I do think it's just a fun sweater. I'm just going to show you a few. And then there's a few in here that were just super popular, like this Rook pullover. Isn't that great? I love that deep U-neck. I think the deep U-neck is coming back. I miss that. This Rockling cardigan was pretty big too. And she has another cardigan like this online that was blue that I liked too. These are just basically stripes. An interesting thing she does in her graphic knits is sometimes it's just the lace creates the graphic look, and the shirt that you would wear underneath gives it that punch of color, like in the minnow top. I'm going to show one more. Okay, well, this is really good. This Danahy Mitts. All right, the Trilogy cardigan. This was one of the big ones that I feel like I wanted the book for. It's like shawl and cardigan, shawl neck all at once. And I know that shawl neck cardigan, kind of flowy open cardigan, had its moment, but I feel like this would always be a cool knit to have and wear. I don't think it's out of style, because this is the most interesting take on that kind of open front sweater that I've ever seen. So she has some other patterns out that I think are newer. Her Tiber cardigan is, again, a little more of a traditional Fair Isle that's graphic in that it's like black and white, high contrast. That's more of a detailed stitch pattern. She has the Judd pullover, which I love. I love the Judd pullover. And I'm wondering if the influence was the artist, Donald Judd. Yeah, I'm wondering if it has to do with Donald Judd, the artist, if he was the inspiration for her Judd pullover. But that pullover is great. It's about a 3 color. Very bright color blocking and or striping, but at an angle. It's good. Her Martin pullover is a classic window pane, a smaller window pane than maybe Boadicea's. Kuffle is really interesting. Great lines, and I have some Julie Asselin yarn I've wanted to make for a while into that pattern. But now I'm questioning whether I have enough for a size that fits me as I am. So I'm not sure about it. That's enough. Oh my gosh, I've shown you a million. So these are my ideas of a graphic knit. To me, it is something that's limited color palette, foreground, plays with foreground and background, and kind of bold, over the top or oversized design. But that's not really, that's limiting. That's just what I think of. I wonder what you think of, if you have any good ideas for graphic knitwear. And have any of you thought about picking up one of these current checkerboard and or diamond shaped knits that you see? I want to do a really good full episode on the Gilmore Girls. The next episode, I'm going to show one Gilmore knit that I did intentionally, and I'm going to talk about one I have the yarn for and I want to do. But I felt like I needed to give it its due, and I couldn't do that this week. I've just been trying to learn and pack in too many things, and mentally I just didn't have the space for it. And I also want your help. Let me know who your favorite character in the, if you hate the Gilmore Girls, let me know. If you don't, who's your favorite character? Whose style do you most like? Do you have any specific knits from that series that you love? And most importantly, you can answer any of that. Most importantly though, does Rory get on your nerves as bad as she gets on mine? Do tell me in the comments.